Well, hopefully you guys have got the idea now from these videos. We think if we show them 3 times, hopefully it'll subliminally mind meld in. So if you need another view, let us know and we'll get that for you. Firstly, we had, I hope, from your perspective, a really interesting private sector panel there, some really interesting customer perspectives. I hope you got a chance to mingle, and as I say, we'll make those guys available for any additional questions you have. We're moving and shifting gears now really to look at the big opportunities that we see in public sector and how the Internet of Everything can really transform the way that services are delivered, that cities manage themselves, and that the cities capture new revenue streams. So a very exciting session. We have some news that's going to break for you at 11. I'm not sure what time it is, but check the wires on that. And I think the guys from Text and the rest of the team have printouts for you. We'll have a press release. We'll have a couple, 3 blogs talking about this. And there's also going to be some news tomorrow as well, so check for the customer-centric stories in the morning. So I'm going to hand it over to Dan Kent, our Chief Technology Officer for the Public Sector team, to introduce this and MC the panel.
Thanks, Mark. Good morning, everybody. As Mark said, my name is Dan Kent, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Cisco's Public Sector organization. And we're not going to talk about beer here. That's not where we focus in public sector, although we use it. But we're going to focus on how our customers protect, serve, and educate, and how they're using the Internet of Everything to make that come to reality in a more efficient and effective way. Often when I talk with customers about the Internet of Everything, they always ask, well, why is Cisco involved in the Internet of Everything? Right? What do we have to gain from it? Why are we driving it so much? Well, it's the Internet of Everything really is come about because of the nexus of 4 major trends and transformations. Right? It's about cloud. It is about mobility and sensors. It's about the network and how that comes together. And, of course, it's about people and process. So Cisco plays a big part of that, and clearly we think we could be a leader in this space. We also know that for Internet of Everything to really reach its full potential, the IT, the cloud, the network, the mobility, the sensors all need to be able to be manipulated. They need to be delivered fast and simply. And that's where we talk about fast IT, being able to simplify the very complex world of IT so it can meet the business needs and meet where Internet of Everything is trying to deliver. So there's a huge opportunity in public sector in the Internet of Everything. And Joseph Bradley, who will be coming up after me, will go into detail on what that actually is. But clearly it's a big opportunity for our customers, for the public sector, to be able to be more efficient, to be able to add more services that they couldn't be able to do before without the connectivity, and to be able to be more productive. So it's very exciting for our customers. And as we found out when we talked to our customers in the public sector about the Internet of Everything, it's not that new to them. They've been connecting things for a long time, depending on the sub-verticals, what was in the Department of Defense, with very, very mature weapon systems and sensor devices, protect public safety, in healthcare. So there is this is not necessarily new, but putting it over an IP infrastructure to virtualize it is what's new in those instances. But there is also to be able to take it beyond just those specific sensor-type systems that are out there. So we go to our customers, and when we talk about the Internet of Everything, it resonates very well with them. And I'm going to give you just a few examples to highlight that. And, of course, we're going to bring some speakers up to go into much more detail on some more examples. Of course, when we look at the Internet of Everything and smart communities, we want to be able to share a single infrastructure with multiple uses on top of it. And we're seeing that in San Antonio. It is about being able to provide a better traffic lighting system that's synchronized. But using that same infrastructure to also provide LED lighting on the streets as well to make that more safe and also spur economic development in those cases. And, of course, using that same capability for video kiosks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're seeing that happen now. We're also starting to see how you can not only track assets with the Internet of Things, but now in healthcare, we can also provide safety for the patients and safety for the staff as they use RFID sensors to give real-time visibility on where they are in the facility, and if there's any type of alert or emergency that's needed, real-time alert systems that bring in other folks to come help them. And we're seeing this right up the street in Napa and throughout the California healthcare as well. We're starting to see, and you've heard about Remote Expert with the Bank of America, we have that coming into our subverticals as well. How do we expand the reach of healthcare? How do we expand the reach of education to whether it's rural communities or international where they are classically underserved? And we're seeing this with the type of technologies that you saw in Remote Expert, delivering teachers, delivering healthcare professionals to these very remote locations to be able to increase their services in those very remote locations. And it's really exciting. We see this happening across the United States. And of course, we're starting to see many of these actually come together, delivered through municipalities, delivered through states, delivered through the federal government. So it's not just one size fits all. It's many things coming up together at the same time. I have one more slide. I'm not sure where it went, but we're also starting to see municipalities deliver that open data type format to the constituents for more creative uses of the data. And this is really where it gets exciting. So we have all the sensor networks that are out there. What do I do with the data that comes from these sensor networks? Well, let's give it to the citizens. It's really their data and what they do with it. We're seeing some really innovative and crafty things in a lot of municipalities, whether it's around bus and train tracking to snowplow tracking. And a classic example in Chicago, a really tough winter.
That's download, right? You still see yourself?
I see me. I don't see them.
Hopefully you'll see from the following speak how it's real. It's not just a vision. It's actually real, and we're going to set the precedence of it. Forget it. Achieve that.
It's on there. They're in a hotel.
Hi, folks. We're just having a little bit of technical difficulty here. We're going to reestablish the connection just as soon.
What do I need to do? I gotta get the file from it. Plug it in. What's that?
What is what's
and ultimately be able to drive and understand change in that organization's environment. So when you think we want to really look at and understand what is the value associated with IoT as it relates to that public sector.
Outside. Oh, yeah. Okay.
4.6 trillion worth of value over the next 10 years for the public sector organization. What does that mean, simply put? It means about a third of the expected productivity out of the public sector organizations over the next 10 years will come from those 40 identified IoE-enabled solutions. Now, here's the thing. When we started the analysis, we had 40 solutions. Well, what happens now? What happens 3 months and 4 months from there? Those solutions will grow and continue to grow exponentially. So what do we mean by an IoE-enabled solution? When we thought about the value of IoE, it's not just about connecting things, very important, but the true value is found in the connection itself. And we define a connection as having 4 components: people, process, data, and things. Now, why do we talk about people and process first, data and things second? We'll come to that later on, but that order is actually really, really important. So let's talk about a real example, and we're going to have other speakers that will go into more detail. But what do we mean by those 40 solutions that were enabled with IoE? The first thing you do is you identify a problem, right? So in most cities, revenue is a key issue. Taxation is not a very popular topic, but revenue in the city is. So parking oftentimes is the number 2 or number 3 revenue generator in a city. So we talk about, what is a dark asset? What is the thing that's not connected today? Think about a parking meter. What new data could be generated from that thing? Space availability. How do I apply process innovation? Well, by applying analytics, I can now create and understand the rate of absorption or be able to apply dynamic pricing. And finally, what is the impact on people? How do I actually change the decision-making process? When you look at that and what we've seen, the advances, and other speakers will come and talk to you, we've seen revenue increase as much as 40 to 60%, and compliance in parking increase as much as 30%. So we talked about the value associated with IoE in terms of being 4.6 trillion on the public sector side, and on the private sector side, I know you talked about you earlier, 14.4 trillion. Key here is all bottoms up, all implementable, executable solutions that have been implemented throughout the globe, not a tops-down approach. Finally, I'll conclude on really, what did the 40 jurisdictional research that we just performed, what did it tell us? What are those core elements? I'm going to highlight 3 things. First, IoE is not the internet of tomorrow. It is the internet of today. It is live, it is well. If you think about Amsterdam, they've implemented over 46 IoE-enabled smart city solutions. Incredible. They have an innovation engine. They've developed a joint partnership between private and public sector that is really driving a lot of value, whether we're talking about smart lighting, smart parking, waste management. They're really driving a tremendous amount of value. So IoE is real, and it's here today. Second aspect that came loud and clear, when you think about the core value associated with IoE, insight is the key currency of the 21st century. Insight is that core element of value for IoE. What do we mean by that? It's the ability to go from data to information to core insight. South Korea, great example. In their ability, in their TOPIS system, or their system that manages their traffic lights and traffic management, to be able to tie those systems in and really be able to articulate and give a citizen a full view of not only what are the optimum routes I should take, but what sources should I take? Should I ride the bus? Should I take the subway? Should I take a taxi? Right? And be able to determine in real-time basis how crowded is the bus, when and what time, what point will it arrive? Right? And what happens if there is a traffic congestion in the city, or they notice a problem? They're able to change the actual traffic lighting to really impact real-time traffic flows. A key, the ability to absolutely drive insight. And then finally, I think the Hamburg organization, the CIO, really embodied this last element. Big data is nothing without big judgment. Meaning, 60% of the value associated with Internet of Everything comes from people and process. Don't forget to tie people and process to the actual data that's flowing. In other words, if I take new data and I do the exact same thing I did before I was presented with that data, the value is nothing. And what they've done at Hamburg is absolutely amazing. The ability to tie information in terms of what ships and what's happening in the port, and then be able to take that insight, take that data, and actually communicate it in ways to the people that are working in a real-life fashion in the city to improve their productivity. To take the ships and take things that are coming into the port and be able to relay that information to city officials so they can change the street lighting associated with the traffic flow patterns in the city. Again, truly amazing. So when we think about the 40 jurisdictional research that we've done and really garnering that information, 3 core pieces of insight that we found were, again, 1, IoE is really here today. It's not something of tomorrow, right? 2, core belief, core values, all associated with driving insight. And finally, don't forget about the people and process. Thanks.
Thank you, Joseph. Now, our next speaker today is coming from Kansas City via video here. Hopefully it'll come up. We have a really exciting pre-announcement. Are we going to be able to get the video? Can we get the video? Is it working?
It's working. As soon as your guest speaks, he should jump.
Fantastic. So we have a pre-announcement. Our latest Smart and Connected community is Kansas City. And what we have today is the mayor of Kansas City, Sly James, who's going to come on and talk about his vision and how we're helping help innovate and connect the city with a launch that we will kick off tomorrow. Mayor?
Thank you, and thank you very much for including me in the event today to announce the next step in innovation for the city of Kansas City, Missouri. Innovation is a lot more than just a talking point here. It's actually a very big way of life. The proof of that is in the joint effort between Cisco and Kansas City called Smart+Connected Cities Framework, which begins today. This framework is a series of pilot projects in our downtown corridor that are going to create new ways of using smart city services to enhance connectivity and resident engagement in downtown Kansas City. Some of the projects we're looking at include environment, infrastructure sensing, interactive kiosks and mobile applications, smart street lighting that's going to help the city save a ton of money on energy, and high-definition security video. Put simply, the possibilities around this framework are limited only by our own imagination and ideas. To foster those ideas, Cisco plans to work not only with the city, but with Think Big partners to manage a Kansas City Living Lab for Entrepreneurial Development. This is going to give our entrepreneurs a chance to build their own unique, innovative applications to enhance the public experience and even to solve some deep-rooted city-related problems. Kansas City is going to be a beta for entrepreneurs all across the world to test applications and technology. It gives entrepreneurs the ability to scale up quickly in a cost-efficient manner by giving them a living, breathing client, that would be the city of Kansas City, Missouri, to test their ideas. I think it would be a really frosty deal if all the entrepreneurs from Kansas City figured out a solution for pressurized water main breaks, something we have a problem with, that could be used not only in the city, but across the country and, frankly, across the entire world. That's really the type of scenario that we've got our eye on. The Smart+Connected framework is a win-win for everybody. It furthers our efforts to be the most entrepreneurial city in the nation while enhancing the quality of life for residents and visitors in Kansas City today. That's the Kansas City way, and I'm totally, completely honored and blown away that Cisco is a part of it. And again, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be here to share that news with you.
Mayor James, thank you very much and welcome to the partnership. We very much look forward to work with you and your team to deliver this IoE in the Kansas City.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to it.
So, and I also understand that you have to leave to go see the governor, so...
We're announcing some new jobs today, and it's always good to see the governor in town to talk about job growth. That's a good thing for our city. So please excuse me. Thank you. Have a good day.
Good luck. Thank you, sir. Actually, during our Q&A, we will have the city manager as well as his CIO come on for the Q&A, so we'll be able to ask questions about that release as well, and you should all have a copy of that pre-release. So taking it from central United States, let's bring it out to the West Coast here. Who we have next is Dan Buckley from Harris. He is working with San Francisco's Metro Transportation Agency, and he's going to show how they are connecting the transportation within the city. So Dan, welcome on.
Thank you.
You need this?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Hi, my name's Dan Buckley. I'm a systems engineer with Harris Corporation. Harris is a international, publicly traded Fortune 500 company. We provide information technology and mission-critical communications throughout the world. Harris is integrating a communication system for the city of San Francisco's Municipal Transit Agency, and I will provide a brief overview of this project currently being deployed and is expected its completion in 2015. Oh, there we go. Good. The San Francisco Municipal Transit Agency is responsible for all public transit in the city and is responsible for all of these operational modes. Specifically, Harris is focused on the public transit mode, which is essentially the management and dispatch of rail, historics, and cable cars, as you see here. The Harris project supports SFMTA's mission, which also supports safety, security, and on-time performance. And the Internet of Everything, powered by Harris and Cisco Technologies, helps the SFMTA develop connected street operations. It is important to both SFMTA and its ridership. In meeting the expectations of its ridership, it's necessary to provide those tools for planning as well as real-time information. And SFMTA needs critical communications for managing the performance, accidents, and events, both planned and unplanned, just as this event this week. San Francisco is an event-driven city, and it always handles exceptions. It is necessary for them to have those tools, to have the appropriate insight or situational awareness to make the right decisions. In order to meet those expectations, it starts with a Harris IP-based network standardized with Cisco, and with Harris's voice interoperable data access VIDA core platform combined with Cisco's infrastructure provides all the voice and data communications throughout the city's Internet of Things. So what are these things? They're a computer dispatch system, they're a radio network above and below the ground, as well as broadband access throughout the city. So a smartphone shown here and connections to regional consortiums such as 511 provide those important part of the ridership experience. What enables these connected things are dispatch operations in the new Transportation Management Center and the train control systems. And this solution is comprised of many different connected systems. So a day starts with a user planning their trip on their phone, for example, and using applications that are connected in real time. Those schedules, announcements, special events are loaded into each of the vehicles every day through broadband connections. And we have selected dedicated short-range communications for that connectivity, which is a connected vehicle solution. En route, there's a connected network of things collecting vehicle location, schedule status, passenger load. All this information on board the vehicle is collected and shared over the radio network. In traffic, vehicles talking with traffic signals provide real-time decisions on traffic flow throughout the city. And again, using DSRC, vehicle-to-infrastructure protocols today, and perhaps vehicle-to-infrastructure and vehicle-to-vehicle safety applications tomorrow. Autonomous vehicles operate in the tunnels of San Francisco, so vehicle location, emergency, traffic management using mission-critical connections underground facilitate real-time decision-making. And ultimately, a rider wants to trust the prediction they see at the stop and that their ride will arrive safely and efficiently as they go about their trip. So it's the combination of all these networks that exchange data for consolidation as information that can be used as insight for the real value of the riders and SFMTA. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Great job. Let's see. So our next speaker is the CEO of Streetline, Zia Yusuf, who is going to talk about how he's helping with, some of you saw the opening kickoff. We talked about someone in Paris, anyone in Paris who has to drive loses 4 years of their life sitting in traffic. And in D.C., where I'm from, I'm sure it's at least that. So you're going to help us with that problem and also bring revenues into municipalities.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I was in the audience with the earlier presentation, and I cannot beat the beer thing, but I'm going to try, because the only thing that you need to do more than drink beer is you actually need to park your car, and everybody who drives needs to do it. So we're one up on that side.
Don't drink it down.
So as was indicated earlier, this topic of smart parking has, I think, surprised a lot of people in terms of how important it's become in cities, on university campuses, even on corporate campuses. And what we're going to show you today is a little bit of sense of what the technology is, talk about two announcements, very, very interesting announcements with Cisco, and then our joint customer, the city of San Mateo, with Matt, will come on and talk about the economic impact and the congestion impact of solving this problem. So just to put it in a little bit of context, it's estimated that approximately 25 to 30% of the traffic in a city is caused by people looking for parking. And these are studies done by UCLA and a whole bunch of other folks. And it's interesting where historically everybody focused in on traffic. It takes you 14.9 minutes to get from point A to point B. You put a bunch of PhDs on it, and we're going to reduce it to 14.2 minutes. The problem is point B is not your destination, right? If you get outside this hotel, your real destination is point C when you've parked the car. And there was no way to measure that other piece of the puzzle, to understand the impact of people going into the left lane, circling the block, looking for parking, and we've certainly all done it. The economic and the environmental impact of that problem is obviously huge, and you see some of the numbers here. There's one study that was done in LA on 15 blocks, just 15 blocks for 1 year, 950,000 excess miles driven, 47,000 gallons of wasted gas. So it's a big issue, and it's something that we can now solve quite effectively. So that's kind of just setting it. And obviously from a consumer perspective, can you find a space? Can you pay for a space? There has to be a better way to do this. And as was mentioned earlier, parking is typically the second or third largest source of revenue for a city after taxes. And a parking spot is really a real estate asset. That's the way to think about it. This is a 5 by 10 piece of real estate that has to be priced appropriately, allocated appropriately, and managed appropriately. So what Streetline does is we go out and put out these sensors on the ground, and I've got a few kind of show and tell things here. This is kind of the sensor. The basic sensing mechanism is a magnetometer and a light sensor. We put it into the ground. The sensor detects the presence of a car. That information then comes up through a mesh network. We're going to make one of the announcements here of connecting that mesh network with the Cisco gateway router. I'll talk about that in a second. As that information comes up, it goes through a whole bunch of algorithms and then ultimately rests with a series of applications that we can provide data and information and analytics capabilities and really solve the problems for consumers, for cities, for universities, and for businesses. And those are the series of applications that you see on top of the stack. So Parkside is something it's a SaaS application for cities to look at real-time data. look at historical data. I'll show you a quick demo of that. Parker and Parker Map are for consumers and for merchants to get that real-time data on your phone. So if you have an Android or iOS phone, you can download the app. And then there's things around enforcement and how to be smarter about that. So what I'm going to do is as I go through here, show you a couple of things. And as with all demos, if it works, we're all going to be happy. So here is just a quick kind of flyby using Google Earth to show you in Los Angeles what one of these typical networks look like, if you will. So this is Los Angeles. There's a few blocks here. You've got the white pieces. These are the sensors on the ground. You've got this mesh network. And if you take a little Google guy and put him on the street, this is essentially what's happening, is you're creating kind of this mesh canopy, if you will. And that canopy has the parking sensors. And the interesting thing is down the line, you can put other sensing devices underneath that. Temperature sensors, sound sensors, you can think about putting pollution sensors. And as some of the other examples we'll mention here, that connectivity in that network, which Cisco is doing, we're doing together with them, becomes the important foundation for that connectivity. So once you get that network up and running, and I will go back and forth here a couple of times, we've used the sensors, and they've been an important part of the history of Streetline. We have now 40-plus customers. And there are certain situations which we looked at the sensors and the cost of the sensors for on-street parking, and we collaborated with Cisco and said there has to be other ways to sense that real world. Streetline started as a sensing company, but we're very much a data and an applications company and provide data as a service, if you will. And so exciting news today, and for the first time in this industry, we're going to expand beyond the magnetic sensors and the light sensors and have now been able to do camera-based sensing together with Cisco, which is huge. And so we can go put out these cameras in university lots, in parking lots, in garages, ultimately on the streets. Those cameras detect the presence of a car the same way that our sensors do, and it's completely integrated into our apps. So I'm going to just show you a little short video here to give you a sense of that. So this is a recording. The other things I show you will be live. So on the right-hand side, you've got a car coming in. This is from Cisco camera. Cisco then has the detection capability in that car. You see on the right-hand side one of our internal applications, and you see one of those spaces just became occupied. That's the first row. That's that white car that came in that is being detected. That information is passing on real time to our internal applications, and then I'll show you very quickly what happens on the external applications. So a new car came in. That's a red car. You see the green, the blue van going, that was not detected. And then there's a third pickup coming. Some people told me this was John Chambers' pickup, but I cannot deny or confirm that. And as those cars come in, they again get picked up in the system. And you'll see in a second here, as they leave, then that changes from from an occupied space to a vacant space. Once you have that information, then you can start building and integrating the apps that sit on top of it. So to show you a little bit of sense of app, and these are all kind of real time. This is a city on the East Coast. This is one of our apps called Parkside. This is the kind of thing that the city would see, and Matt, who's going to come up, uses this application. This is showing you this very second on the streets in Howard County, the number of spaces open on the street at different parts of the street. And obviously, as you have a bigger deployment, you'll see many more of these. So there's this real-time data. It shows you the available parking spots, the percentage of occupancy. And again, this is all real-time, within 15 to 20 seconds. Then what a city can also do is they can do the back-end analytics, and they can look at this historical information. So in this case, you're seeing historically the occupancy levels by this chart, 8 a.m. all the way through 5 p.m. And this is the kind of information that you can start then using for things like dynamic pricing. And I'll show you a quick example in LA, where again, parking spots become a scarce commodity. Price differentiation is one important way to manage that. So you have these analytics. So there's all kinds of historical reports that you can take a look at, average length of stay and so on. And again, for the first time, you're having a parking spot actually talk to you. You're having a city actually talk to you and say, hey, I'm open, I'm occupied. These are the issues related to it. The final thing in terms of demos I'm going to show you is our consumer app, Parker, in the sense of what happens when a consumer looks at it. So you can take a look at this. You go, you take a look at the Yeah, let's go, sorry. On the city here, places, I'm just going to pick San Mateo in order to mark me here. So you look at San Mateo, there's 30 parking spots available this very second, and you see on each block, and we divide them up into categories, less than 2, 2+, and 4+. And as a driver, then you can decide on where you want to go. If we take a bigger deployment, such as Los Angeles, we go a little lower here, and here you'll see that in Los Angeles, at this very second, there's 1,151 spots available. And you slide into this, and you see now the situation in a larger city, whereas you're driving down the city, don't go to the blocks with less than 2 spaces. Go to the ones with 2+ or 4+, and you're 100% guaranteed to find parking. And this is, again, all real time. And we're now working with in-car navigation and map companies to take this data into those environments. And in the case of LA, you can also take a look at the pricing. And as you can see, in certain blocks here, it's $4. In other blocks here, it's $2. And in other situations here, it will be even less, $6 out here. So these are the situations where, based on that real-time data, you can start thinking about parking spots as a strategic asset, as a real estate asset, and start pricing it from a city perspective. So that's what we're doing in terms of Cisco on the camera side, which is very exciting. And then the other piece of the puzzle that we're doing with Cisco is on the network piece of it. And this small device here, and if I drop this, then I'm going to have to get workers' comp, which could be good. The lower part of this is the Cisco CGR box, the connected gateway router, and the top piece of this is our mesh network box. And we just brought this out. We actually launched this a couple of days ago. It's all built, and this then takes the ability to take one kind of networking technology, connect it to the other one, so you can then connect it to a Wi-Fi network, you can have a backhaul. So we're doing 2 very interesting things with Cisco, and announcing the use of now cameras and camera-based detection for parking, as I showed you, and as well as the Cisco connected gateway router. So it's about, again, the Internet of Everything is, as was mentioned, is here. It's real. We've been doing this for the last 2-3 years, and now that whole process has been accelerated, and it gives city an opportunity to think about parking from a revenue perspective, the citizens to help find parking, pay for parking, and then for merchants in order to bring all of that in. We'll talk about that there. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Zia.
Great.
And congratulations on the announcement.
Thanks.
And our last speaker today will be Matt Bronson. He is the Assistant City Manager for San Mateo, so he can give you a real-world example on what he's doing with this technology. Matt?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you. The previous speakers have done a great job in sketching out the vision of the Internet of Everything and really linking it to city systems, parking in particular. And certainly that's a system that desperately needs this type of technology to better manage itself. Anybody here like to drive around in circles trying to find parking? Trying to look endlessly to go from point A to point C, maybe to point D down the road? No, nobody does. Parking is a core infrastructure that the city provides. As Mayor James pointed out, city government is all about providing the infrastructure to support our communities and our economies, and parking is a key aspect of what cities do. Going forward, providing public parking spaces helps provide economic support for our community, and providing parking more easily and more accessibly to our community helps to support our business. And that's where our partnership with Streetline and Cisco comes in, to provide a smarter approach to downtown parking. So just a little bit of background on San Mateo. We are a city of about 100,000 people, so on a different scale than Amsterdam and Hamburg and Los Angeles. We're located about 30 miles south of where we are right now, about halfway between San Francisco and San Jose, home of Cisco. And we are right in the middle of Silicon Valley. We have a very strong technology culture in San Mateo. We have a community and a clientele that demands to have the kind of technology applications that have been exemplified in this presentation. We're also a suburban city, so we don't tend to maybe innovate quite as quickly as some of the larger cities do. We tend to go a little bit slower in our pace, but right now we're at the forefront, the precipice, of really advancing our approach to internet connectivity going forward. Our community has a very busy, very active downtown area with 600 businesses, 150 bars and restaurants. If you get a chance to come down and check us out, we're a short Caltrain stop away down the peninsula. That being said, we also have some parking congestion in San Mateo. It's a good problem to have in many cases, but we also don't want to dissuade people from visiting our downtown area. It can be difficult at times to find parking. There's a perception that parking is in short supply. We don't really have a very good way of navigating people around to find parking that's available. We don't have a good platform for on-street and garage parking, which led us to working with Streetline back in 2012. We deployed a pilot project with Streetline powered by Cisco hardware to really help develop smart parking technology in our downtown core. We use a number of different applications, including Parker, ParkSight, Parker Map, to really help test out this technology for our community to see if it would work long term. This system helps customers find parking more easily and helps provide information so that we as parking operators can better utilize our infrastructure and make better decisions when it comes to parking. And we're in the process now of shifting our policies to reflect the demand that this data suggests. So I got a couple of slides here, and I know these slides are quite busy. This is not an eye test. This is an example of the kind of data that we get from this system. We have these sensors located in 135 spaces in the downtown core in San Mateo. I won't ask you to look at the numbers in detail, but just look at the colors: green, yellow, red. This reflects parking occupancy by hour by block face. So if you see green, which is really at the far ends of the scale, that means you're going to find a parking place very easily. No problem. If you see yellow, that means you'll probably find a parking place. There won't be that many, but more than likely you'll find it. If you see red, good luck. You're not going to find a space on those blocks. You're going to circle around, and you might choose to go somewhere else. As city leaders, our goal is to really bring the red more down to the yellow and really bring the green into the yellow. The yellow occupancy, which is about 75-80% occupancy, reflects a vital downtown parking system. It means that we have people coming downtown, parking downtown, but they will always find a parking space when they arrive to our downtown community. We use this information to help identify strategies to influence customer behavior and increase availability. For example, tying in parking rates to parking demand. So in this area, we have data to indicate this is a very highly occupied area, so our parking rates over time will be higher in this area than other areas in our downtown community. This data gives us 24/7 real-time information to make better decisions as parking operators. Another way to look at it is looking at the occupancy over time with enforcement hours. Our current enforcement hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. They've been that way for probably 50 years. They haven't changed at all. So what the data from the sensors indicated is that our parking occupancy is much higher over the course of the day. So if you look on the chart here, the gray line starts at 8 a.m. We're only 40% occupied at 8 a.m. when we start enforcement. But yet, when we end enforcement at 6 p.m., we're at almost 100% occupied in these spaces. But yet, we don't collect any revenue, and people don't have any incentive to move their car. They park at 6:05, they're there for 4 hours. They don't move their car at all. That doesn't help us as parking operators. That doesn't provide the kind of turnover we need to help provide spaces for our customers. So this data, again, gives us real-time information to suggest that shifting enforcement hours to start perhaps at 10 a.m., or 11 a.m. and go until 8 p.m. would capture the kind of occupancy that we need in order to create more turnover, to create more parking spaces for our customers, our patrons, to enjoy our downtown more easily. So again, this is information to help us make better decisions and to go from the perceptions and observations that we had before. So these are just two examples of how using this kind of technology, smart parking technology, can be a tool for us as a smarter, more connected city to serve our community more effectively, make better decisions, and to help provide the kind of community that our customers are expecting of us in San Mateo. And this is just the beginning. We want to go from smart parking into other infrastructure management here in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Have a seat right there. All right, so now we're coming to the question and answer part of the event, and I'd like to introduce Ashley Hand and Troy Schulte from Kansas City. Can you hear us, Hello? Ashley and Troy?
Hi.
How are you?
Hi. Great. Thank you very much for jumping in for the mayor. So let's open up for questions and answers.
This is for Matt. Very interesting. I was just wondering if you've considered actually street side signage to give people an idea of what the occupancy is.
Absolutely. That's the next step of our parking plan. Our city council just approved a parking management plan last month, and a key recommendation was to integrate technology platforms, including on-street and off-street parking sensors and dynamic wayfinding signs, so that as you're approaching downtown, you'll see how many spaces are open at on-street spots as well as in key garages to help inform our customers.
Very good. You have a question back?
Yeah, I have a question about the video announcement. If you only need to know whether or not a spot is occupied or not, why do you need video data on that? It's kind of a binary.
Yeah, so the question is, you need to sense the spot. You need to sense whether there's a car in that spot or not.
Right.
So today we do it through our sensors that I showed you that we put in the ground that detect the presence of that car. And that's great for on-street parking, on street. Then when you talk about parking lots, for example, on university campuses or in cities as well, there may be a more cost-effective way to do that, where one video camera can cover 20, 30 spots, if you will, as opposed to putting a sensor in each spot. So what this does is it expands the modes by which we can sense the real world and better target it to the types of physical situations that we may find ourselves in. But in both situations, camera or sensors, it's pre-integrated into all our applications. So the applications, either the consumer apps or the city apps, they don't know the difference between a sensor and a camera. It's giving them the feed that says, yes, there's a car there or not a car there.
Okay, thanks.
Very good. Question?
Yeah, my question is for both Zia and Matt. For this to be effective, it needs to be adopted by the municipal agency of a city, right? So I believe the investment would be pretty huge. So in how much time can they expect the ROI on this?
So the investment is actually not huge. We have an upfront fee that for deploying the sensors and the applications, and then there's a monthly fee, typically $13, $15, depending on the size of the deployment. The ROI actually, and Matt can obviously talk to this, it can be pretty significant because again, you look at the economics of the parking spot. Right? There's two sources of revenue for that spot. It's the money that you pay to rent that spot, so the money you put into the meter, or it's the money that you pay if you didn't pay the first time, which is the parking ticket that you get. Both are sources of revenue. And then when you add all the other pieces in terms of the congestion management, the consumer conveniences, the ROI is not the issue here at all. And in fact, we've had very interesting discussions with Matt and some other cities of doing things around revenue share and other portions. There is so much value trapped in parking systems in the world today because honestly, there's been no innovation in these for the past 30, 40 years, very little. And so with new technologies, with the Internet of Things, combined with mobile, combined with analytics, big data, is a perfect storm, if you will, for those things.
And just to quickly add to that, the investment cost is very important to us in city government. We are talking to Streetline about different options to deploy this further in a cost-effective manner. The enforcement opportunities present some revenue opportunities. And also, there's a cost avoidance. Every parking space that we don't need to build saves $50,000 in costs in our area. If we can use our spaces more effectively, that's costs that we don't have to pay.
And just to point on that, we've been doing this. We've managed over 250 million parking events in the last 3 years. And we don't really see parking occupancy rates more than 92, 93, 94%, if you will. So that's pretty high. You'd want it at 85%, 80%. But when people say they can't find a parking spot, in most cases, it's not that there isn't a parking spot. It's the fact that they're looking in the wrong place. Okay, which sounds like a kind of an idiotic statement, but if you don't have the information and you get to an intersection and your wife or spouse says turn left and you say, no, I'm going to turn right, I know there's parking there, and you make that decision, it's at that point, then you go down the street, you don't find anything, then you come to another intersection point and you have to make a decision. That's the information and the problem that we can solve very dramatically in terms of reducing the amount of congestion in a city.
You were talking about the locked revenue and so on, and how you could tap into that and I guess make more money. I guess two parts. How much percentage-wise can you increase the current, I guess, profits or revenue rather, and the sensors? Why can't they charge us via number plate? Why do we need parking inspectors? Why, after 6 p.m. Why move? Say, instead of starting at 9 a.m., they start at 10 a.m. Why not just getting rid of them and using the sensors or the IP cameras to look at the number plate? And I'm assuming that these are cameras already in the city that you're making use of. Maybe you can comment on that.
I think you're going to see a tremendous amount of innovation in parking and traffic and transportation in general. It's honestly a very exciting time to be in that space, if you will. You will definitely say, you don't need meters today, right? You don't need parking meters on the street. You can use your mobile phone to find a space. You can use a mobile phone to pay for a space. You can have a pricing scheme set up. The reason, by the way, the cities and the merchants want you to move your car is to allow other people to come in, and so that shop owners and other employees don't park on the street for the whole day, not making it possible for consumers to come in. So I think with the introduction of electronic technology, with the introduction of mobile phones, I think there's an opportunity to completely rethink this. You could have a situation where you go into a restaurant or a Starbucks and they ask you, which spot did you park in? You say, 39. They go online and electronically validate spot 39, so you never have to pay for parking. And so there are all these kinds of scenarios, I think, where maybe it won't turn into a joyous feat, but it will definitely be reduced to not being an issue.
We're certainly moving in that direction towards a more mobile approach. We also are taking things in a measured way. Just several years ago, we stopped taking pennies in our parking meters, and that sparked an outcry among some in our community. So we're taking things in a stepwise approach so that we're bringing in new technology in a way that the community can embrace and adopt.
One thing to add to that, I think we're focusing a lot on kind of what we see here today. But what we're seeing is when we start connecting these different systems, innovation creates new value. So an example is we're talking a lot about smart parking, but there's also a store or retailer that would love to be able to reduce its time waiting for customers in a line. And we found that if we actually know, take a dark asset and we know when that car parks in that retailer spot, we can give that retailer 45 minutes in advance notice of when they're going to experience an influx into their store. For every second we reduce for this particular retailer, for every second we reduce the customer waiting in line, it delivered $5 to $10 million of additional revenue annually. So what you're going to see here is that although it starts out as solving a particular problem, because of the power in connecting various solutions and the public and private sector partnerships, you're going to generate new insight and new value that we can't even imagine right now.
And I might just add that I think that's one of the values that we see of creating a living lab platform here in Kansas City is by creating a space where entrepreneurs can test and try and quickly scale up these solutions. And I think it's a great opportunity, and we're very excited to invite everyone to Kansas City to help test it on our Smart and Connected community.
Thank you, Ashley. Another question? Oh, right there. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ana from Colombia. My question is for Joseph. In Bogota, capital of Colombia, we are 8 million of people, and one of the biggest problems is the traffic congestion. And if the Colombian government asks for your help, what do you think it would be a good solution? We don't have a subway transportation.
Yeah, so, the common question we get all the time is, where do you start? I mean, IoE is so big, where do you start? And so one of the things that we did with the research was to answer and dedicate that to that question. So we interviewed 7,500 business and IT decision makers, 18 different job functions, 12 largest economies around the world, to understand, given the 40 solutions that we understand today, what is the optimum way those should be deployed, and what are the key characteristics for any city around the world so that we could give them their digital DNA, or ultimately their roadmap to value. So we always start out with what problem we're trying to solve, number one. Number two, we start out with what is a dark asset in that process chain? What is something that we connect? Once we understand where we can connect from that dark asset, we then look at how do you capture that data? How do you then apply analytics to impact process? And then finally, most importantly, how do I tie that to people? What is the collaboration system or mechanism I'm going to use to change decision making? So other people might want to just start in the panel.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I've kind of discovered, I used to be at a big software company before this, is for the smart city stuff, historically there was a tendency to look at very big projects, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and somehow the city is going to become smart. I think history has shown us, and certainly the technology now, that you have to take a very specific vertical cut to this. You have to solve the business problems and the consumers and the citizen problems. And as you add these different pieces, there needs to be a horizontal infrastructure and a horizontal platform that can support that. But you have to start from those use cases, and whether it's water, or the mayor mentioned pressurized pipes, or smart parking, or garbage cans, or buses, or trucks, or whatever it is, that use case has to produce value. And it's an exciting time, because I think you can kind of turn this stuff on its head.
Yeah, just like San Francisco here, we are replacing our old radio system, but we're doing it in a way, building architecture and networking throughout the city that's enabling all the endpoints, those dark assets. So our project is seeding all of the innovation and technologies that will come in the future.
I guess, Ashley and Troy, what was your first application, or what were you thinking when you started down this path?
Well, we're in the process of building a 2.2-mile streetcar line, and so one of the issues that we had, and it's a little different variation on parking meters, but one of the issues that we have in a town that hasn't had streetcars in 60 years is how do we do parking enforcement to make sure that streetcars flow conveniently? So some sort of an automated parking system mechanism that could alert law enforcement when we've got a car parked along the tracks, or some of those issues could help speed up those processes. The other thing that we are exploring is the concept of being able to make our downtown is more of a destination area. Could we use this network, this horizontal infrastructure, as a mechanism for people, businesses, residents to communicate, exchange information, exchange ideas about, hey, this is a particular good restaurant, there's a sale, you get a special, buy one, get one free salad. Who knows what the issue is. If someone is in one part of downtown, they may be able to be notified on their smart app that there's an opportunity in another part of downtown that will encourage more of that street-level activity. So, again, building out that horizontal infrastructure and then letting the market decide where there are opportunities along with our business and commercial base, we think has got the excitement for us to build off of. The city provides the infrastructure and let the private sector, the private market fill in the details.
So it sounds like we have another customer, so I'll be on the next flight out there. So I appreciate
Looking forward to it.
I appreciate you making that comment publicly. And so
Okay, hi. I've got two questions. Maybe first one is certainly for Zia, and the second one might be for Matt. Now, I'm curious about this camera versus sensors. You did say that, say, a camera could look at 20 vehicles, whereas a sensor will have to be placed at each parking lot at a time. Right. But as far as I know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not an expert on this, the sensors are far more cheaper. I would think 20 sensors would probably cost less than one of these cameras which are motion sensitive and all that. So I'm trying to understand why not sensors, because the data involved is not very intensive. It can be measured in kilobytes. So,
it's actually... So the sensors is just one piece of the puzzle, right? It's the sensors, it's the mesh network, and the information that you need to get out.
Yeah, but you need the same mesh network whether you have a camera or a sensor.
Well, the camera can have a Wi-Fi network or even a cellular connection potentially to go out there. Look, cameras are getting cheaper and cheaper. And Cisco is also looking at, I think this is one of the interesting things about the Internet of Everything is companies have to look at the solution and the cost of that entire solution. not just the hardware piece of it. It's not enough to sell the hardware, right? And so what we're doing with Cisco is we're saying, okay, at the end of the day, look, this is like a cable, your cable into your home for TV. You don't care about where the cable is coming from and where the data is coming from. You want to know is the programming and the content on your TV. Same thing here. Matt cares about the applications, the data, the example that he showed about how to change policy. That's what ultimately matters to him. So what we're doing, what Streetline has done, and now we're expanding in very exciting ways with Cisco is, are there better, cheaper, faster ways to detect the real world? And in certain situations, a camera could do a better job. The interesting part, and very important even for our sensors today, is the magic is not in the sensor. The magic is in the algorithms behind the sensors. It is the sensors give you magnetic reading. Yeah. You have to then, and we've got a whole bunch of algorithms and got some PhDs that I know honestly pay way too much, but they look at this data and information and actually say, yes, there's a car, there's not a car, there's magnetic interference, there's all kinds of stuff because you're in the real world. On the Cisco camera side, we're getting an API that tells us there's a car there, there's not a car there. So they're doing the detection capability with some partners. So.
I'm Geeta Dabir. I manage some of the camera portfolio. The advantage you have with the cameras is, first of all, many of the cities do already have cameras deployed, and they're used for multiple purposes. They can be used for surveillance purposes too. And also, some of these cameras can have analytics on them, and one of the analytics we do have as an app on top of our camera platform is, detecting the car alarm condition. So you could use it for more than one purpose. And just as mentioned earlier, the cameras are becoming cheaper. And then you can also use, I think someone mentioned here, why not use the camera to prevent a police officer to come by and give you traffic tickets. We do have license plate detection mechanism by which you can actually detect the license numbers, although it's a little more complicated if you're doing 10 or 15 cameras, 15 spots with one camera, but it can be used for that purpose too. So the cameras give you more use cases and multiple options. So if someone's around the car looking around, especially in San Francisco, we very much know how you can't have anything showing inside a car. You will have someone breaking into your car. You can detect someone loitering around the car for a period of time and then recognize that. So there's multiple options you get with the camera, which you cannot get with just a sensor.
And just to make sure that you don't walk away with a different opinion, the cameras and the sensor are complements to each other. This is not like we're going to stop doing sensors and we're only going to use cameras. On-street cameras are still tough because you have trees and you have all this other kind of stuff and there's interference and they can only get a few number of spots and so on. So it's about the mixing and matching of it, which is fun.
So okay, but the second point I had with Matt is, ultimately when you look at these cameras, these sensors, they're very nice, but it's the back-end app, that type app which Zia showed, which I get on my smartphone, which really matters. If the app doesn't give me the necessary information in a very seamless manner, it really doesn't matter. Like, say, for example, if I were driving, I don't know if your app does that, but I'm just trying to understand the situation. I'm driving, and I'm going to a particular place, and I have the phone in my hand, but the app doesn't know where I am in relation to my destination. It's very difficult to drive and to, it has to be integrated with a navigation system. And not only that, I would think that, you still have this discrete thing. We heard about transportation, the public transport train system, you have a bus system, you can drive yourself. If you could, is the ultimate aim to mesh all these together so that if I'm going downtown and I look at this app and it tells me it's particularly congested in the area I want to go, it's better for me to take a public transport instead of driving. Is that the ultimate goal of this whole exercise?
I would say that is one of the ultimate goals, is to provide better information to customers, to patrons, so that they can make better choices of how to travel to our city. They can park in a spot where they're going to get to immediately versus traveling somewhere else and having to circle 5 times around, wasting gas, burning emissions, and maybe choosing to leave. For the city's standpoint, we want to get the information to better manage our assets, to better manage our infrastructure, to help us make better decisions for our infrastructure. So it's twofold. Both of those goals are very important to us.
Great. And we have a question online?
Yeah, we've got multiple people online. So we have Kim Davis from Future Cities. This one's for Dan on the Harris side for SFMTA. And I think this goes to a wider question. Maybe Kansas City can talk to this as well. It's once you start to get the this route information that you're getting from all of the connected vehicles, how do you capture that? Does it rely on sensors? And what's the infrastructure there? And what's the power constraints here if you do need sensors? How do you keep them up and running down the line?
Well, there's multiple wireless networks throughout the city. One is 700 megahertz public safety P25 land mobile radio for voice communications. We have another overlay at 800 megahertz land mobile radio for a voice and data network for all the vehicles. So there's a blanket on the city in a wide area to continuously communicate for telemetry, location, and all of that. We're also, from a connected vehicle technology using dedicated short-range communications. It's a line-of-sight broadband technology that will be deployed initially in all the yards to provide wide, broadband connectivity for all those vehicles to download the bulk of data for the next day or the logs coming from the previous day. And then eventually that will build out to more hotspots and traffic signals and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, for the sensors today, the battery thing is actually a huge thing. Power is a huge thing. Today in our sensors, we have 2 AA lithium batteries, which last 4.5 to 5 years. And we're adding a few other batteries that will allow the sensor to last 10 years. So, getting line power on city streets is not a straightforward task. And so you have to have a battery option or battery capability. There's certain gateway spots, like our gateway, our integrated gateway at Cisco requires line power, and you get it from a light pole or a traffic light and so on. But in general, the whole power balance and the radio balance is critical.
Yeah, the architectures are becoming fairly mature now for these applications, so they're out there and well documented. Question?
Hello, my name is Daniel Sokola from the German Heise Publishing Group. Well, I've had a career in city government myself. And if that was for Mr. Bronson from San Mateo, if you want to see a system that's been running almost 20 years for garage information and the dynamic street sign, and you go to Vienna, Austria. They had that for a very long time. However, so far it has been decided not to do sensors in the street parking for 2 reasons. Because yes, you could reduce park search traffic a lot. But that would also mean that it's more attractive to drive there because you find parking very quickly, and it would result in a much more traffic. So there would be more gas burned and more exhaust and more full roads. So that was a political decision and also a cost decision because there's a rule in Vienna: once you open a road, you're not allowed to open the tarmac. You're not allowed to reopen it for at least 10 years. So it's very high quality tarmac or granite, whatever. So that is a problem for new technology. So whatever technology you need to put in, A, the battery has to last at least 10 years, and B, it has to be future-proof technology so that you don't have to go in after 8 years and put in something new because the standards have changed. Now, that leads me to a question to Mr. Bradley. That was an experience that we had in Vienna, that there is also a traffic light system which has been integrated with sensors. The streetcars influences, the bus influence the system, so they have a green wave for many years now. And there's a central system that directs all those traffic lights. The problem was that it is, for historical reasons, a one-vendor system. And it got hugely expensive for the city because they cannot go to a different vendor because it's proprietary protocols and everything. So what is Cisco's approach? Of course, Cisco's interest, it would be that the cities buy that and they keep buying it for the next 25 years. But that might be a hindrance for a city to actually buy in. Are there open standards? How could a city later go and and buy from someone else in Cisco if they buy from you today? Thanks.
Okay. So you want to answer first?
Yeah, so one thing I want to pick up on, and I think this is something that has changed in today's world, is you made a comment that you want a future-proof system from a technology perspective. I would respectfully disagree with that in the following way, that now where software is playing a much more important role, even in the sensors that we have today, we have over-the-air programming. We update our sensors on our network with improved performance, battery detection capability. We provide this as a data as a service. We're not selling you the sensors. We've never sold the sensors of the network. So you don't actually want future-proof technology. You want a system that will evolve and will update. So you want flexibility. You don't want future-proofing because the technology is moving so quickly. And most of it, as the gentleman said earlier, the value is in the apps and the data and information. And we're pushing out new apps and new versions of our apps every 6, 7, 8 weeks. And Matt gets on his SaaS application new aspects of this that even he could not have dreamed about that would exist. So I would just suggest that the thinking from we have to make one decision and this has to be fixed and we have to make the right decision, so let's take 2 years to make it. I think it needs to go into much more of a fluid deployment that retains the flexibility, but that allows you to take advantage of it.
Yeah. So I'll answer your question this way. When you think about the Internet of Everything, in a world where data is plentiful and insight is scarce, you are encouraged to be inclusive. In fact, inclusion becomes the number one strategic asset that you have to drive value. So therefore, an open architecture approach is not like the nice thing to do. It's the right thing, and it's the profitable thing to do. Because you want to allow as many people, as many partners to connect with that system so that you can truly drive a great deal of insight. So our approach is one of open architecture. Our approach is one to allow a city to build a platform upon which, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're a startup or whether you're a large established company, if you can add value to the citizen, if you can add value to the entire ecosystem, we want you to participate. And that definitely is, I think you will begin to see that mindset begin to sink in, because all too often the value of these solutions is not on the first layer. It's not that immediate, obvious response. It's what happens when the unexpected occurs by integrating a variety of different solutions. So we definitely feel that an open architecture approach is the best way to go.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, that's the difference between the IoE today and the sensor networks of 10, 20, 30 years ago. This is really based on IP, which is obviously Cisco's pedigree, TCP IP, as the core standard communications infrastructure that we're talking about. But we're also acknowledging that these legacy sensor networks are pervasive, and you're not just going to swap out all of those systems. So that's our overall IOX strategy, which is basically saying we can bring in the IP network with a gateway to those legacy sensors and encapsulate or allow those legacy systems to write on our gateway so that we can exist in your legacy world while transitioning to the new IoE world, which is all IP-based, where now that information can go everywhere. Are there any other questions?
Mary?
Oh, okay.
I'd like to ask a question of Kansas again, maybe San Mateo too. And I'm interested in understanding more about the partnership that you would have with technology providers in the Citizens Lab, for example. Data seems to be the key to all of these solutions. Some of it's going to be real-time data that's streamed, but some of it's going to be data from your own data sets if you're thinking about urban solutions. So could you talk to me a little bit about the project from your end? Do you have to cleanse your data? Do you have to create APIs? Is it a resource issue for you to participate? Also, how do you manage things like privacy concerns if you're going to be videotaping people on the street, for example? So the city has a different view than the technology provider.
So Kansas City, Missouri, actually, we currently publish data on an open data portal and actually are in the process of reviewing a policy recommendation in our city council. So we are well on the way of understanding how big data can be used by the community at large to kind of help solve the problems that we face as a city. And I think we do see that there is opportunity for curation through specific events that can be hosted to look at this data and come up with solutions to address some of the biggest challenges that we face, which is part of the reason why we're focusing not only on the living labs, but this idea of community engagement through this technology. How can we make it accessible to people just walking on the street, not just necessarily people with a smartphone, understanding the digital divide and the opportunity we have there to make this type of data relevant to the entire community and solving those issues.
And just to add to that from San Mateo's perspective, privacy is very important to our community and to us in city government. We have used this type of data to, in an aggregate form, to really help us make informed choices as city government. As we go forward and expand this further, we'll certainly be very mindful of the legal ramifications, the restrictions, but also recognizing that we're talking about public forums, public places, where there are different type of privacy expectations than in your own home or in your own business.
So I think, guys, we're over time. I know this is a very lively debate. Vaughan, I know you have a question. I'm going to suggest we take that one-to-one so we can all get some lunch as well. I know our panelists will be available. I'm sure, as again, the team from Kansas City will be willing to take those questions over email, or we'll set up a separate telepresence meeting for you. Now we have it in the office there. But thank you so much. And obviously, I would encourage you to look at the materials that we just put out that lay out some of these wider use cases in the public sector that Joseph's team have collated for us. So some very interesting global examples. I think there's relevance in every one of the countries represented here today in Cisco Live. So please encourage you to see that. And I'd like to thank Dan and the team for a great panel.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.